after all what we went through, and now this dog disappeared. This can't be happening. Please, Lord, this can't be happening. This just can't be happening.
Welcome to Wise Woman Stories. I'm your host, Delia Quigley. You know, if you've ever loved a dog, you've probably wondered, did we choose them or did they choose us? Over the years, I've come to believe that every dog enters our lives with a purpose. Some arrive to make us laugh. Some teach us patience. Some help us heal after loss. Some remind us to play, to trust, or simply to be present. Whatever the reason, they never stay long enough. Today, you'll hear stories from women whose lives were forever changed by the dogs who walked beside them. They're stories of loyalty, mischief, courage, comfort, and love. Not just love, but unconditional love. Perhaps, as you listen, you'll remember one special dog or more who changed your life too. I want to begin by sharing something that an important spiritual teacher told me, which is that dogs come into our life with a kind of a contract, and they're there for that period of time that's a specific era. And I have really found that to be true with my animals. My first dog, my childhood dog, I probably got maybe like 4th or 5th grade. And when I graduated from high school, my parents sent me on a tour to Italy, and he was killed during that trip. So when I came back, I was facing, going to college, and I no longer had my trusted doggie in my life, but off I went to start my life outside of my home. I didn't get my next dog until probably 2006, and that was Elijah. And I bought Elijah from a breeder, which of course I'll never do again, but at the time I fell in love with his breed and I got him. In 2008, my mother passed away. In 2009, my father passed away. And my sister and I were sort of, talking about how, because we always went home for Christmas, we were talking about how we can now go to Provence and, orphans, all that stuff. Well, in 2010, she came down with pancreatic cancer and she passed away. This started a period of years where I continued to function at work, but I was just simply wiped out. I was untethered. I wasn't married. Still not, and I didn't have children. So I guess I took for granted that my nuclear family, you could go home for the holidays. We still had that connection going on. So I was really messed up. And Elijah was a bit of he was a coton de Tulier. He was not a problem dog, but he wasn't very warm and fuzzy, and he could have behavior problems at times. But at any rate, he kind of forced me to, this same spiritual counselor said, he sort of forced you to stay home. And that's what I did pretty much for the 4 years after everybody died. I was just working and then going home and being sort of comatose. In 2014, Elijah died very young. He was about to turn 7. And so once again, there was a big loss. So throughout the summer, I kept looking for dogs. And I don't know if any of you have ever gone through rescue processes, but it can be really tough. You apply and you don't get it. Or one time I applied and I thought I was going to get this dog, and the rescue person fell in love with the dog and decided to keep the dog. So I was becoming very distraught. I decided to pray to my sister and tell her to find me the right dog. And the next morning, I woke up and I went to the pet finder, and there was a picture of Bodhi. At the time, his name was spelled B-O-D-I-E, but I changed it to B-O-D-H-I, which he did turn out to be a little bodhisattva. So I saw his little face. He at the time, he was not really a looker, but I saw those eyes. And when I looked at his birthday, it was 11-11-11. And when I added up those digits, it was 11/22, which was my sister's death day. And I thought, okay, that's the one. And after all of this hullabaloo with the being checked out, you can maybe hear Champ in the background. He's my latest dog. I called the person and they answered the phone and she was like, come on over and meet him. He was in another state. So I got in my car, I drove, and he came out of his little pen and we went to the backyard to sit down. He immediately came to my lap, even though I knew he was a nervous dog. He came into my lap and he never took his eyes off of me. And he had little skin problems, which I wondered about, but I didn't care. I knew he was mine. And I put him in the bag and we drove home and he looked at me through that bag. I left a little opening. And like I said, he never took his eyes off me. Now, I didn't know much about rescuing a dog, and that night I had a dinner party to go to, so I hauled him along with me, not realizing how nervous that would make him. And he just clung to my feet, and he just wouldn't budge from my side. And he had separation anxiety, which I now realize I probably did too, from my family. So in his brokenness, I started to see my own brokenness. And I feel like our years together was a mutual healing process. I now see it very clearly. At the time, it sort of emerged as a meaning for me. And I will say that, he for so long would sleep curled up like in a defense. And the first night that I saw him unfold and just lay in a relaxed stance with his belly showing. Oh, what a moment that was for me. And that little dog, he just continued to burrow so deeply into my soul that I know he was really the one. And then Bodie died and I got Champ. And when Bodie died, I had already started to feel normal again. And I got Champ, and Champ is a little independent, very different, not vulnerable. He's not scared of anything. He goes with the flow. No problems. And I realized that I'm not scared anymore. And so once again, I've attracted the right dog at the right time. And I love him. I've had him 3 years, and my love has grown. But Bodie continues to be my soulmate. And I've heard other people talk about that there's, they all have different ways that we love them and interact with them, but there's always that one, and that's Bodie.
Starting in the late 70s, I began performing in a circus act, small. And we had heard about a vaudeville act called JoJo the Dog-Faced Boy, where our finale was a dog act. So I made a little jacket with JoJo on it and a pair of pants, and our little Australian silk-haired terrier would jump through a hoop and roll over and then climb this ladder to a perch 4 feet and then be balanced on my partner's chin. I had rigged the pants so as she went up the ladder, they would fall down. A huge hit with the audience. They would erupt into laughter. We loved that little dog, and we went through 3 more silk-haired terriers until we got to our final dog, Rosie, who was a long-legged Jack Russell. Rosie refused to wear the pants, but she was the smartest and the best performer we ever had. She jumped through the hoop, rolled over. She would jump up and pull this little scarf out of my partner's pocket, and half the time it would fall on her head, which also was a big hit with the audience, and then finally climb the ladder. And the hard part, crawling back down. In her later years, I didn't think she was going to be able to. We had to up the ante from little pepperonis to roast beef and steak, hot dogs, whatever, to get her up the ladder. And she would be sound asleep, and I didn't think she'd ever get up. And once her music went on, she was up and ready to perform. She loved being on stage. She delighted us and thousands of school kids. Rosie, may you rest in doggy heaven.
You just heard from Deborah Fernandez with her little guy Champ barking in the background, letting us know that if we're going to be talking about doggies, then he had something to add to the story. And then Pat Fenda sharing her story about Rosie, the performing Franzini circus dog. How about something a little different? Something about grief and comfort.
Okay, so my dog Lucy was a rescue. And Sam, my husband, wanted that dog to be mine. He didn't want to have anything to do with training dogs. He just finished training his last two, but Lucy adored Sam. He had that male, I don't know, it was a female dog. She just adored Sam. So every day that Sam would come home, and I'd say, "Oh, Daddy's home." And she'd go running to the window. He'd come in. He'd sit on the couch immediately and just put her paws on his lap and lick his face. And so that was every day. And that dog adored him. So when Sam died, and it was a very sudden death, none of us were prepared for it. And obviously I'm mourning, and Lucy didn't even want to sleep with me in my bedroom like she had done when Sam was alive. She was just mourning him too. But I would go out on my porch and just, cry. I mean, it just was intense, the grief. And she watched me and would come up to me like she did Sam every day. She came up to me, she put her paws on my lap, I'd be crying, and she would lick my face nonstop, as if Sam was there with me, as if he was there with me, calling her over to help both of us get through this grief. And that's my story. And from then on, she was always my dog. After that, she started coming with me as if it was Sam letting her know that I was going to be the person for her now.
I once had two pups. Maya, she was a Cairn Terrier, and Seamus, he was a long-legged Shih Tzu. Together, we weathered a few storms, and we looked to each other for love and comfort. Now, if you've had no experience with a Cairn Terrier, you should know that they are a wonders dog. Part tiny wolf, part lion. They're constantly alert and in the moment, even when sleeping. They hear everything, and they comment on everything. They are the true master of the house, and we slaves follow their swaggering rear end through doors and out into nature. Our relationship inspired me in 2014 to write the Stonehouse Diaries, telling stories through the eyes and voices of my treasured companions. So while preparing for this episode, I came across one of those stories that Maya had narrated, and I'd like to share it with you. People think we animals don't remember when someone wrongs us, but we do. At least I do. I remember. I tuck it away, waiting for the day our paths cross again. Maybe humans would call it revenge, I don't know if that's the right word. I just know that when another animal hurts me, something deep inside remembers. The moment their scent reaches my nose, my whole body reacts. I don't waste time barking and carrying on the way humans sometimes do. I'd rather settle things quickly and let them know exactly how I feel. There's one particular black and white creature Mom insists on calling a skunk. Last spring, Seamus and I cornered him near the old tree. I thought I had him. I rushed in for the kill. Big mistake. He lifted his tail and fired something straight into my face. My eyes, my nose, even my mouth. I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe. I gagged, rolled in the grass, and threw up. Mom came running with the hose. Then came bath after bath after bath. Tomato juice all over my face, vinegar, every shampoo she could find. Nothing worked. For weeks, I smelled so bad that no one wanted to come near me without holding their nose. So yes, I've been waiting for him. Every now and then, especially on warm summer nights, I catch his scent drifting through the yard. A growl rises in my throat before I even realize it's there. Mom places her hand gently on my head. I smell him too, she says. Let him go, Maya. This isn't a battle you're going to win. She says some lessons come around more than once, just to make sure we're paying attention. She also told me that the neighbor's dog has been sprayed 4 different times, which makes her think dogs can be as stubborn as humans. Once we decide someone is the enemy, we have a hard time letting go. Maybe she's right. But every now and then, I still catch the faint smell of skunk on my own fur, and with it comes the memory. So, if he wanders into my yard again, well, Mom had better make sure she's stocked up on skunk shampoo.
This is my story about my beautiful little street dog called Yeti from Romania and his very adventurous arrival in Ibiza, which is where we are living. The offstart was that I always have at least 2 dogs, 3 dogs at times. So one of my dogs died in about November. He let me know in the morning telepathically that he was going to die in the evening, and I was like, that was so. We were on a walk, so it was really crazy. But I heard him, and I was like, okay. I mean, yeah, well, it doesn't make much sense at the moment here and now, but you know. And guess what? He really did. During the day, the energy went down, very softly, very, very smoothly. Boom. And then he fell asleep on my knees around 9 o'clock in the evening. And a friend came over and we nicely buried him in the piece of land that he was living on. Beautiful. And then I was with one dog. 2 weeks later, a friend of mine, she showed me a picture about a little fluffy thingy and from Germany. And she said, Anita, would you be interested in that dog? And I was like, oh God, he's cute, but no, thank you. She insisted, kind of very weird. She insisted would you be interested? And I would really make that, ask if it's still available. So she did. And the doggy was still available. So she made it happen. I mean, people were kind of donating money that I don't even know. I have no idea who these people were or are and how and why they donate money to a support that they have nothing to do with, neither with me, nor with anything. So I call it one of these miracles that happen in life because I really do not know how it happened. But there she was going to Germany because she had things to do in Germany. I was just basically on the sideline watching this whole movie unfold. So there she came in the night with the doggy. Had no name yet, the fluffy thingy, which was completely freaked out in his little bag. So there was Mr. Yeti. I mean, he was drugged out of his brain because they needed to drug him because he was completely freaked out. He went from Romania to Germany, so he was completely off the wall. I didn't know to what extent until later. Then I took the doggy for a walk. At least that was my intention. So I had this special thing to put on his body, with a lead. He was seriously freaked out. It was like he tried to bite me. But anyway, I somehow managed to get this thing on and off we went. And we went about, I would say, 10 minutes into the walk. He bit through his lead, the whole thing he bit through. No idea how, what. He just did. And he just went away. He sped off. And I was like, oh my Lord. I had all kind of thoughts in my head about the dog in a place that he doesn't know. After all what we went through, and now this dog disappeared. This can't be happening. Please, Lord, this can't be happening. This just can't be happening. No. Anyway, it was happening. Then, in my complete franticness, I called a friend of mine, and he came with a car. So on went a mission, which was like a Mission Impossible, so to speak. But I was just like, I went. He went with the car to all kind of places. I went walking. And then I met him twice or three times I met him. I really bloody met him. And I was like, hey man, let's go back home. Couldn't touch him. I had no way to touch him. If I would come close, he would just run away. So in the moment he heard a car, he sped off again. In the moment he saw somebody, he sped off again. In the moment he heard voices, he sped off again. So this went on for about 5-6 hours, I would say. Let's go one more round because, I'm not going to leave the bloody door open here at my home, in my apartment. And I'm going to go another round. And he said, okay, I'm going to go another round with my car. And let's, So I went again and I prayed. I mean, because I didn't really I did not know what to do anymore. I was at my end. Please, please, please help us. I don't know what to do anymore. This is completely out of my hand. I'm completely surrendering the whole thing, myself, everything, to the universe. What else to do? And I went into my home, and Mr. Yeti was sitting in the middle of my entrance on the carpet, and he looked at me. And I closed the door, and I thought, man, this is just the most beautiful thing ever. In that moment, I cannot tell you, I felt like all the bells were ringing. I don't know how you want to explain this. I was like, how on the earth did this happen? Because this little guy, he never was in my place. He came, he was drugged out. He was still completely drugged out when I left, when I dragged him out to have a walk. No doubt about it. I could see it. I could feel it. Drugged out of his brain. So he was carried with the bag out of the car, up in the apartment. That means he had I don't know what senses, it's just like no sense of smell. He couldn't smell, apart from the apartment, he couldn't smell anything because he was just carried in the bag, which was full of poo and pee by that time. So that was an overwhelming smell in the bag from the journey and his fear. But there he was. How did he find the apartment? How did this happen? I have no idea. Really, that was for me an absolute miracle, a beautiful miracle, like all miracles are. Oh, and by the way, to just extend that story a little bit, I went then afterwards for 3 weeks through hell with this little creature. He was just biting me anytime I came close to him. He bit my hands. In the end, I had to really touch him with my leather gloves because I was like, wow. I mean, this is like the devil in a little, kind of like little doggy body because, oh my God, Lord, who are you? He peed on the carpet. He pooed on the carpet. I was like, Lord, whom do you bring here in my house? I never had this experience because all my dogs, from the first day on, they all functioned seamlessly. I didn't know anything else. That was a first. And it was not a very happy one for the 3 weeks or 4 weeks or however long it was. But then after this month, he cooled down, it cooled down, he cooled down. And now he is my Yeti, that I can only tell you, my beloved companion. And I love him to pieces. And he's still a rascal. And the other dog is still alive, 21 years old. Completely the opposite to my other dog, completely denying himself to leave his body, still hanging in there with all his might, which I'm going to give him the space, however long he needs to leave. And then another girlie came along, 7, 8 years old, from a friend of mine who had no space for her anymore. So here we are, 3 of us again, all with long little fluffy hairs, the fluffy gang, and me.
Now that's a doggy who needed time to decide if living on the streets of Romania or comfortably in Ibiza was better or worse. So he took off on a tour of the island and came back to Anita with resolve that he needed something more to feel safe, and he needed to test her, and so she gave him the space and she gave him the time. So many people would have returned Yeti to a shelter or back to Romania. But Anita put on her leather gloves, endured his bites, and eventually won him over. Now that's unconditional love.
About 9 years ago, my husband and I adopted a rescue pup from Georgia. And she was about 8 or 9 months old when we got her, and she was really cute, and she had a little scar on her face, her cheek, underneath her eye. And she's part golden retriever, part Staffordshire Terrier, a little bit of Chihuahua thrown in, and she's really a cute little thing. But she's very nervous and hyper-aware. And I noticed that when I would take her out for walks at night, because at the time I lived in New York City, she would stop by the garbage cans, and her ears would perk up, and her head would tilt back and forth and side by side. And then one night, she literally jumped into the garbage. And I'm like, oh my God. And it would happen so quick. She started shaking her head back and forth really vigorously, and she comes out of the garbage, she has a dead rat in her mouth. And I wasn't afraid. I'm not scared of rats. I believe the way the Chinese medicine is that the rat is a resilient creature, and it's highly adaptive, and it represents wealth and really intelligence, high intelligence. So I wasn't scared. I was actually sad. I was like, oh my God, this dog just killed a rat. I felt terrible about it. And I went home and I told my husband, and he says, okay, just don't walk her by the garbage anymore. But that's kind of hard. You live in New York City. There's garbage everywhere. So we also started taking her to Central Park. And in the mornings, you're allowed to have the dog off the leash from 7 to 9 a.m. So we're walking through the park one morning, and the dog stops in her tracks, and she tilts her head to the side, and she's looking at something all the way on the other side of a very tall fence, maybe a 4 or 5 foot fence or higher. And she just takes off running, jumps over the fence, and goes behind a tree, and all I see is her body shaking, that rigorous shake, right? Her head back and forth, her tail back and forth, and I was like, oh my God, she just killed something. I bet it's a squirrel. So my husband goes over the fence, and he goes to get the dog, and he's calling her, Rue, come here. And she comes out from behind the tree, and her tail is wagging, and she has a squirrel in her mouth, and she's bringing it to Pablo. And Pablo screams at her and yells at her and says, put that down, no. And she dropped the squirrel out of her mouth, and her ears went down, and her tail went between her legs, and she looked really downtrodden. And, if a dog could be sad, she looked really sad, like she did something terribly wrong. And Pablo was so angry and so upset that she killed the squirrel. And I understand that. It's hard to watch something like that. And so he told me, he said, don't let the dog off the leash anymore, because she's obviously going to kill things. And so I said, okay, well, I'll just let her off once in a while. I'll keep my eye on her. And I'll take her to places where there's not as many squirrels. So one morning I'm walking through Central Park, and Rue stops at one of the fences, and it's a very, very tall fence, like 5 or 6 feet. I'm like, there's no way she's getting over that fence. And she stops, and she's looking at 2 squirrels that are fighting. And there's 2 girls on the bench behind me. And they start saying, oh, would you look at how cute that is, how adorable that little dog. That dog is stalking the squirrels. That's the cutest thing I've ever seen. I've only seen that in cartoons, and they're laughing and they're giggling. And then all of a sudden, Rue pounces over that fence. It was a 5 or a 6 foot fence. She jumped over the fence, darts toward the squirrels, grabs one of them, shakes it to death in 1 second. And the girls behind me start screaming. Now they're screaming. And they're saying, oh my God, your dog is a killer. It's a murderer. You have to put that dog down. That dog killed a squirrel. The next thing it's going to kill is a baby or a child. And I said, I understand that is something that is so hard to look at. An animal killing another animal. I said, but that's really a stretch. I said, I don't think the dog is going to kill a child. It's never bitten a child. That's not its prey. I said, I'm so sorry that this happened, and I'm so sorry that you had to see that, but the dog is not going to kill anybody, right? That's not the way that the dog is designed. So Pablo says, we have to get a trainer. And I said, okay, we'll get a trainer. So we got a trainer, and the trainer immediately noticed that the dog has an extremely strong prey drive. So he had suggested that we get a shock collar to shock this instinct out of the dog. So I said, I don't think this is a good idea, but Pablo said, we got to try it. She can't go around killing squirrels and rats. I said, yeah, but that's how this is a dog. Dog is, it's not a lap dog. It's an actual working dog. She's part Staffordshire Terrier. This is part of her, who she is. But I lost the argument because, we live in a society where that's not allowed. So we get the shock collar for the dog. The trainer puts it on the dog. Rue sees a squirrel in the park. She immediately gets into stalking position. The trainer puts on the shock to the dog. The dog stays completely still. It's as if the shock machine is not even on at all. And he says, okay, we got to turn it up. He turns it up to the next level. Now, the dog is still just focused on the squirrel with extreme intent. And the guy says, wow, this dog has a very strong prey drive. He goes, the next level is the end of the level. So he starts to turn it up, and I can see the dog's neck kind of tilting over to one side, but she's still focused on that squirrel. And I could see her neck is shaking from the shock collar. And I said, stop it, get the collar off the dog. I said, I can't do this. I said, that's the dog's nature. That's who she is. I'm not going to try and change her so she could fit into society. I'll keep her on the leash from now on. Right? My job is to keep her on the leash. So as fate would have it, I watched a news show that had this guy who was one of the Westminster Dog Award judges, right? And he had an organization called RATZ, R-A-T-Z. And they would go into the low-income areas in New York City, and they would rat the areas because we no longer have any predators. We don't have fox. We don't have coyotes. We don't have wolves, right? So the rat and the squirrel population are overblown and out of control, right? There's so many of them. So he would take the dogs into those areas. So I put her on the list to be part of this exclusive group of dogs that would go in and rat areas. And 4 years later, 21 squirrels, numerous rats later, I get a call from them. And they're like, bring your dog. We're having tryouts. Bring your dog up to this farm. I brought her up to the farm. She goes to the tryouts. Immediately, she was picked. Out of the 13 dogs that they had there, he said, okay, your dog is in the team. And I was like, oh, great. I can't wait to see what the team looks like. Right? There was a documentary film producer there. There was all this stuff going on. So she gets picked, and we go out on our first rat hunt in New York City in the low-income projects. And there's about 11 dogs, 10 or 11 dogs. Actually, no, maybe I think it was 6 or 7 dogs that were chosen for this rat hunt. The pro dogs, and then our dog, that was a newbie or, even though she was 4 years old by this time, she was considered one of the young pups. Her first time out, they go to the first set of garbage cans, right? That's where the rats live. They go to the first set of garbage cans. The judge, kicks the garbage can. All the dogs at once, ears perked up. They're on guard. They're at it. They go and they rat the garbage. And Rue got 11 rats, which was the most ever out of any new dog for this team. And there was a total of 36 rats that they got that night. But the most amazing thing that happened, the most spectacular thing that happened that taught me a lesson about life, was that as the dogs were ratting the garbage, all of the windows in the project opened. And the people came out and they were clapping and applauding the dogs. And I cried, as I'm about to cry right now. And they were saying, thank you to the rats, R-A-T-Z. Thank you to the dogs. They wanted to take pictures with the dogs. The dogs were their heroes because this area had been overrun by rats. New York City in general. There's so many people. There's so many rats. There's no predators. So this dog had finally was able to do what she was designed to do. She was able to be herself. She was able to step into her nature, to be the predator, to get the prey, to clean up the neighborhood. The people were so grateful, clapping, taking pictures, asking all the dogs' names, saying thank you. Can you imagine? So that taught me a great lesson about letting things be what they're good at. Whatever it is. I'm not going to get a lion and then expect the lion's not going to eat my cat or my purse or my child, right? Let the animals, we've domesticated them, but they still have these instincts. They still have these drives. So let the animals be who they are and let ourselves be who we are. What is your instinct? What is your drive? What do you feel that you are here to do? Well, that's the same thing. That's the gift that I gave this dog. She was able to do what she was so inclined to do, that no matter what we did, shock collar, chains, yelling at her, none of that worked. What worked was letting her be exactly who she is.
As I listened to these stories, I realized something. None of these dogs are famous. They didn't change the world, but they changed someone's world. A circus dog, a fearless rat terrier, a little dog waiting for revenge after an encounter with a skunk, a faithful companion who stayed beside a grieving widow, a once feral dog who finally found his way home. Each one left paw prints on a human heart. And that's the miracle dogs perform. They ask for very little. A walk, a meal, a kind word, a little rub behind the ears, a place to belong. And in return, they offer us something that is becoming harder and harder to find in our busy lives. Complete presence, uncomplicated love. And a reminder that joy is often found in the simplest moments. If you've loved a dog who is still lying at your feet, give him an extra scratch behind those ears today. And if your faithful companion now lives only in your memories, perhaps tonight you'll smile at one of the stories my guest shared. Because the ones we love, well, they never really leave us. They simply continue walking beside us, but in a different way. I want to thank my guests, Deborah Fernandez and Champ, Pat Fenda and Rosie, Carolyn Green and Lucy, Anita Peter Hansel and her beautiful Yeti, and Andrea Beeman and Rue. Thank you, wise women, for bringing your love and your stories to Wise Woman Stories. I'm your host, Delia Quigley. Explore more at deliaquigley.substack.com. Until next time.